I'm Chris Thompson, and today on the Business Behind the News, I'm asking the question, is it time to grow the U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve? I'll give you a hint. I think it's go time. Let's get into it. It's time we talk more seriously about the United States' national strategic Bitcoin reserve. Bitcoin recently hit an all-time high of $126,223 on October 5th, 2025. The U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, as it's called, was formally established on March 6, 2025, when President Donald Trump signed an executive order entitled Establishment of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve in the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. Prior to the executive order, the U.S. government already held a massive 200,000 Bitcoin that it had seized from criminal activities. But this action formalized a policy to treat Bitcoin as a strategic national reserve asset and consolidate those holdings. It'd be almost criminal if the U.S. didn't put in place a funding mechanism to grow the Bitcoin reserve through both confiscation and investing a percentage of tax revenue that the government takes in each year. Some have even floated the idea of using revenue from tariffs. Okay, that was my idea, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of that. Just this week, the Department of Justice announced the seizure of a record-breaking $15 billion in Bitcoin tied to a massive alleged pig butchering scam. But hold up, I can hear you asking yourself, what's a pig butchering scam? I know I had to look it up. Turns out, no actual pigs were murdered in these scams. A pig butchering scam, which the Chinese phrase literally translates to killing pig plate, is a sophisticated and long-term form of investment fraud, which often involves cryptocurrency, where the fraudster cultivates a relationship with the victim before stealing their assets. The term comes from the idea of fattening up a pig before the slaughter, meaning the scammer spends weeks or even months building trust and emotional investment before convincing the victim to invest a large amount of money on a fake platform, which they then steal. Enough about pigs and scams. Unless you're part of the minority of people who still believe cryptocurrency is a scam instead of being one of the fastest growing asset classes in the world. The value of the United States government's Bitcoin holdings is in constant flux due to the volatility of the asset's price, and the total figure is a dynamic number because of ongoing criminal seizures, occasional sales, and the returning of Bitcoin to their rightful owners when legal cases are concluded. Following the record-breaking $15 billion seizure of the massive pig butchering scam, the total estimated Bitcoin holdings of the United States government have ballooned to approximately $37.1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Prior to this major seizure, on-chain data and expert analysis had estimated that the government stash is around 197,354 Bitcoin, valued at roughly $22.1 billion at the time of this calculation. The subsequent seizure of this approximately 127,000 Bitcoin, valued at $15 billion, pushed the total amount of Bitcoin held by the United States to 324,354 Bitcoin. This now puts the United States in the lead for having the largest Bitcoin reserve in the world. The primary source of establishing a Bitcoin reserve is the direct contribution of criminally seized assets. Federal agencies routinely confiscate massive amounts of Bitcoin. For instance, in November of 2022, the Department of Justice announced the seizure of $3.36 billion in Bitcoin from James Zhao of Gainesville, Georgia, which was linked to a defunct Silk Road marketplace. U.S. Attorney Damien Williams described the recovery as a massive chunk of missing Bitcoin. This followed what was the largest seizure at the time in February of 2022 of more than $3.6 billion in Bitcoin tied to the 2016 hack of the Bilfex exchange. The old policy was to liquidate seized Bitcoin at the end of the trial, but going forward, these Bitcoins could now be contributed to the new Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. While seized assets would be the foundation of a Bitcoin reserve, the reserve could be more formally funded through other means to achieve a target size, such as a hypothetical $100 billion. I made that figure up, but it sounds like a nice ambitious goal to work towards. The Treasury Department could issue digital asset-backed bonds, raising United States dollars that are then used to purchase Bitcoin in a controlled way so as not to cause the price to skyrocket. Bitcoin could also be purchased using funds from the federal government's general fund as a line item in the yearly budget that Congress passes, or doesn't passes, as is the case with the timing of this article. Congress could, for example, allocate, say, $10 billion over 5 fiscal years starting in 2026. Mechanically, these reserve holdings would require a high-security custodial solution, like a mix of cold storage or multi-party computational protocols, managed by a dedicated subdivision within the Treasury to protect the national wealth from loss or cyber attack. The U.S. government could also hire third-party companies like Coinbase or Gemini to act as custodians of the Bitcoin reserve. Ignoring the rise of Bitcoin means missing out on a new financial frontier, especially when the government is already collecting billions of dollars worth of it every year. The conversation needs to shift from whether Bitcoin is real to how the United States will use it to grow its digital arsenal. Creating an official Bitcoin reserve comes with significant trade-offs. On the pro side, it would signal the United States' commitment to innovation, allowing the U.S. to hedge against potential dollar devaluation while securing a strategic position in a globally recognized digital commodity. A reserve would give the U.S. a powerful seat at the table in future international discussions about the digital economy. On the con side, we have to take into consideration the high volatility of Bitcoin, which could lead to billions of dollars in losses depending on market swings. It also legitimizes an asset that some lawmakers view as purely speculative. Then there's the operational security cost of maintaining a multi-billion-dollar digital wallet, which would be enormous and require continuous investment of millions of dollars annually to prevent security breaches. The United States government is already a major holder of Bitcoin through its law enforcement operations. By funneling these holdings into the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, the United States moves from a passive custodian to an active strategist in the digital economy. Thanks for listening to my hot take about how I think it's time to begin growing the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. If you haven't already, smash that like button and do me a solid and subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified next time I drop a hot take. Thanks.